Welcome back to Movie Moshow. Today we are going to review the drama horror mystery film, The Village. If you like our content, don't forget to like and subscribe. We upload multiple times daily. Spoilers ahead. Covington is a little Pennsylvanian community from the 19th century that is cut off from the outside world. All of the locals are forbidden from entering the village's surrounding woods because strange animals lurk there. The inhabitants and the monsters came to an agreement many years ago that stated neither party would enter the village or walk into the woods. The hamlet was enclosed by a wall and given instructions on proper behavior and what colors to wear to ward off the animals. One of the town's young people, Lucius Hunt, Joaquin Phoenix, approaches the village elders and asks to leave the village and travel to the towns in the hopes of finding medications and other remedies that may stop further losses or possibly treat the mental illnesses of one of the town's other young people, Noah Percy, Adrian Brody. This is after one of the elders, August Nicholson, Brendan Gleeson, loses his son to an incurable disease. The village elders promptly turn down his proposal. The villagers think of Lucius as a rather weird young man. He hardly interacts with most people and keeps to himself. Lucius declines Kitty Walker's, Judy Greer, proposition for marriage when she approaches him. Ivy, Bryce Dallas Howard, Kitty's younger sister, and Lucius were childhood pals. Ivy, who has been blind since she was a little child, asserts that she can perceive a color around Lucius. Noah gives Ivy some red berries one day while they are in a little spot close to the wood's edge. They don't grow in the hamlet, and according to Lucius, Noah has entered the woods without suffering any harm from the wildlife there. As a result, Lucius becomes more adamant and asks the elders once more for permission to visit the towns. Lucius thinks that since the creatures didn't harm Noah when they let him into the woods, they won't spare him either. When Lucius' second request is turned down, his mother Alice Hunt, Sigourney Weaver, who claims that the outside world is dangerous and where his father was killed, counsels him to stay inside and forget about it. In response to these accusations, Lucius says that despite the fact that Edward Walker, William Hurt, the father of Ivy Walker, is married, he notices that his mother looks at him in a certain way. Additionally, Lucius makes a note of his mother's locked, blackwood box. Each senior has a box with mementos from their earlier lives before they founded Covington. Even if Lucius begs his mother to do so and share her previous secrets, she declines. Lucius is assigned to patrol the village's perimeter the following day. He crosses the lines without the other people noticing and walks into the woods for a while. His attention is drawn to a nearby sound, but when he turns to investigate, all he sees are some swaying trees. Later that evening, Lucius stops by the Walker's home and speaks with Ivy there. Ivy explains that her sister has made the decision to wed a different young guy in the community since that time has gone. Ivy calls Lucius brave for wanting to leave the hamlet, but she thinks his course of action is foolish. Ivy tells Lucius that she is now free to have suitors court her since her sister is getting married before he departs. The animals in the woods are claimed to have entered the village shortly after the alarm is raised. Ivy is able to enter the Walker's home before one of the creatures attacks her after Lucius arrives there. Many of the town's doors have red marks cut across them when the next morning arrives. Edward Walker discusses his belief that the creatures feel endangered at a community assembly. Coming forward, Lucius asserts that it was probably his intrusion into the nearby woods that caused the beasts to enter the hamlet. Despite the fact that Lucius is ashamed of what has transpired, Edward praises him for being a very brave young man. Following that, Kitty Walker and Christoph Crane, Fran Krantz, had a wedding celebration. Children's screams are heard during a loud dance, and several say that some of the beasts have returned to the community. The townspeople discover skinned animals draped above the porches of several homes, forcing them to cancel the party. The elders become worried as a result of the animals' behavior, and more watch groups are dispatched. When Lucius arrives at the Walker's home in the evening, he sees Ivy relaxing on the porch. They finally confess their feelings for one another during their conversation, and the next day they inform the elders of their upcoming nuptials. The little community is quickly informed of the news, and Noah soon visits Lucius. When Lucius repeatedly stabs Noah, who appears upset by the news, he surprises him. Shortly after, Noah departs from Lucius and is later discovered with blood on his hands. Ivy heads to Lucius' little blacksmith shop to tell him what happened, but instead finds him lying motionless on the floor. When Ivy is unable to perceive his color, she becomes more concerned. Noah is imprisoned in a little house because of his behavior. The treatments used in the hamlet are ineffective for treating Lucius's wounds, and it seems likely that he will pass away shortly. Ivy asks her father for permission to travel to the towns in order to collect supplies for saving the guy she loves. At first, Edward is dubious about this, but he quickly takes Ivy away and leads her to an abandoned shed. The towns, according to Edward, are a bad place, and Ivy's grandfather was a wealthy man who was murdered by someone in the towns. Ivy is terrified when she detects the animals inside the old shed as Edward unlocks it. Edward clarifies that the suits were just made by the elders to prevent the other villagers from leaving the town's boundaries and that the creatures aren't actually genuine. Edward explains to her their true history, describing how each senior relocated to the town in search of a better way of life after losing a loved one. Ivy requests his permission to leave Covington and go to the towns, and he begs forgiveness for their lies before giving her directions and granting her wish. After Ivy has left, Edward returns to Alice and tells her that, given his affections for her, Ivy's mission to save Lucius is all he can give her. After that, Edward goes to the other elders and tells them what he did. While many are inconsolable, Edward maintains that what he has done is the only compassionate thing to do and not only to safeguard Covington's way of life. He tells them that Lucius was a victim of a crime long ago, just like their ancestors, and that he couldn't bear to deprive Ivy of the opportunity to save a loved one. Since the elderly won't live forever, their way of life will be preserved by young individuals like Ivy and Lucius. Ivy prepares her supplies, including a gold pocket watch her father gave her in exchange for prescription drugs. Kristoff, Kitty's husband, and another young man named Finton Coyne, Michael Pitt, accompany Ivy into the woods. Kristoff starts to feel afraid after only taking a few steps outside the village's boundaries. Kristoff retreats despite the fact that they are dressed in yellow, which is seen as a good hue, and despite Ivy's assurances that she has a bag of magical rocks to shield them. Finton stays with Ivy for another day before succumbing to his own fear. Ivy permits him to go back and carries on by herself. Soon after, Ivy comes upon a large pit that nearly takes her life. After navigating it, she hears an odd noise and feels what she thinks is one of the animals, despite her father's assurances to the contrary. She is repeatedly charged by the beast. Ivy successfully guides the beast back to the pit by using her memory and remaining senses, where she manipulates it into falling in. Unbeknownst to Ivy, it turned out that the creature was actually Noah dressed as one of the characters. In the home where he was being held, he had discovered the outfit hidden beneath the floorboards. After donning it, he fled into the woods. After suffering serious injuries in his fall, Noah quickly stops moving. Ivy keeps going and soon encounters a large wall. She starts to climb over carefully. Several of the village elders unlock their locked black boxes as she does. Memorabilia from their previous lives are kept inside. Covington only appears to be in the 19th century, it quickly becomes clear. The time now is the actual time. Edward Walker had the idea for the community of Covington. Walker joined a support group for those who had also lost loved ones to violence after his father was killed by a business partner. Walker, a history professor at a nearby university, came up with the concept of establishing a small, remote hamlet to protect the group's members from further suffering or loss. Walker's father, Edward, who was extremely well off, had the settlement constructed far inside the Walker Wildlife Preserve. To maintain the appearance that the hamlet is a rural and rustic place, a substantial wall surrounds the preserve and measures are taken to prevent airplanes from flying overhead as well. Ivy had arrived back at the wall when she is startled by an odd noise and a young man's voice. The young man's car's siren is what is making the noise. He is a member of the patrol team who makes sure no one tries to enter the preserve. The young man first gives Ivy the creeps because of what she has heard about individuals in the towns. The young man offers to assist her get the medications she needs, but she immediately detects warmth in his speech. Thank you for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe.